Wildcats, Cameron, another look, yes!
You're listening to Straight Outta Whack.
Kobe knocks! Bam!
Bella Earl, that's where she's special, and one. Through his legs for Mike P. Oh my!
Three for the lead! Got it! Lamar Wilkerson with 1.3 left to go!
Here's your host, Kyle McDonald.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Straight Outta Whack podcast, TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday to all the listeners out there. It's a great day. Let's be real here. It's the weekend. It's Friday. It's whatever you want to talk about. A couple of things. Like I said, there are 3 games around the WAC today, so that makes it great. And all 3 of them are against Division I opponents, so that makes it even better. Second thing is it's Veterans Day, and while I don't have necessarily any immediate family members that have been in the military, some down the line have, and I know friends that have served in the military to protect our country and to protect our rights and our freedoms. And there's a lot on this timeline, on the Twitter timeline, fans and so forth. Thank you for all that you do, all that you've done, the service that you provide, the protections that you provide. Our lives wouldn't be what they are without you, and we appreciate it. You are the true heroes of our day, and I'm grateful for every one of you. And for those that have served or that have passed on who served, just an amazing bravery and heroism that you show or you've shown. Yeah, just thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything that you've done. We're almost a week into the 2022-23 season. How's everybody feeling right now? We've had some ups, some downs, some disappointments, some exciting moments. I'm sure Sam Houston fans are feeling pretty good right now. Seattle U, one of the defending co-champs in the WAC, is off to a really good start. Stephen F. Austin coming off a big win last night. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that game against Gardner Webb last night. A little back and forth early on. Then Kyle Keller goes to his bench. Rati Ware comes in and provides a big-time spark for the Jacks, get them going offensively. And Nana, I can't say his full name, so I'm not going to because I don't want to get in trouble by Kyle Keller or the SFA fan base. So I'm just going to go with Nana. 21 points, 7 rebounds, and he really looked dominant last night. Kyle Keller said that it was his best performance, the best performance he's ever seen. And he only made 5 shots. But it was very efficient. There were a couple of blocks. One of them was on a dunk attempt right at the rim that he got up and basically threw back in the Gardner Webb player's face. It was just a very dominant performance for the 6'9" junior forward, who, according to some, has seen some highs and lows, but never been consistent or hasn't been consistent. And so hopefully Jacks fans can see that consistency as for this team, because if he can be consistent, they're going to be very good because they have so many good guards. Rati Ware came off the bench, had a huge spark, 16 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, in the win. It's one of those things. Latrell Giselle had 13 points. Day Hall had 12 points. I mean, it was just a good all-around performance. And then midway through the second half is when they took control. And it was never really close after about the 10-minute mark or so in the second half. A good win, 86-71 win over Gardner Webb. Kyle Keller said it was a quality opponent that they played. In his post-game comments, I don't have the video yet. I would love to share that with you. But anyways, I'm going to bring in Derryl Trujillo. He just joined on from, looks like sunny Riverside, California right now. Derryl?
Yep, it's a nice sunny morning here in Riverside. CBU hosts NJIT on the men's side tonight. Looking for the Lancers to bounce back after a tough opening night loss against Long Beach State.
Yeah, and we'll get to that game in a minute. I want to talk about, maybe you saw it, maybe you haven't seen it in any of the women's games yet, this new flop rule where, an official will determine if it was a flop or not, and if it is, A Class B technical is issued. Any opposing team gets one free throw. I saw it happen twice last night in the SFA men's game. I saw it happen twice in Utah Valley's loss at Utah State on Monday. UTA had it happen to them in their loss at Oklahoma State. I have a big paragraph here that I want to talk about this in. I feel like this is going to cause a lot of chaos in the college basketball world because it's so subjective on what the officials feel is a flop or not. Like you could see it last night too. The first one that got called on Roti Ware, he got run over. I mean, there was a shove with the arm by the Gardner Webb, offensive player. The second one, I could kind of see why they called a flop because it didn't look like he got hit hard enough to fall down the way he did. Derryl, what are your thoughts on this? Because we're going to see this a lot in games, and it could have an impact at some point. I don't want to say at some point. It will have an impact on ball games.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to see how they're going to handle this. It's not like the coordinator can show you, put a video out and say, this is a flop, this is not.
Right.
It's up to the official calling and what the official sees in that moment. It's not like you can backtrack and say, hey, that wasn't a flop. What I'd like to see is there's some – I hate it, but I want to say there needs to be some aspect of monitor when it comes to the flop rule.
Yeah, it's so subjective. Like it's hard to. I mean, it's kind of like balls and strikes in a baseball game, and I'm a baseball guy. I love baseball, but it's a subjective call sometimes, or even a check swing. I guess is more along the lines of like a subjective call. Like, where's the line? How do you know who makes the call? Does the third base, first base, or the home plate? Like it's really subjective, and because there's no set line or guidance on what is a flop and what isn't a flop, that's a judgment call by officials, and I think it's going to cause some problems. I'm not going to lie. I think it's going to cause some problems.
I do too. I think it's one of those things that they will go back and address next rules change cycle. Maybe add some guidance for the officials and the officiating coordinators to teach their officials what falls under flop and what isn't. Yeah.
And they're gonna have a lot of clips to show, which ones may be the right calls and which one will be the wrong calls. So it'll be interesting to see, excuse me, how that plays out all season. I'm very interested in how that's going to go. But SFA did get a really good win last night at home against Gardner Webb. The only Division I men's game on the slate last night, so that was a good win for Kyle Keller and the Jacks, especially considering that it's one of two home games against Division I opponents. They will play their next one against Alcorn State at the Sawmill. So a good win there. And just real quick, everybody, off the subject of college basketball, of flopping, of whatever, just want to remind everyone we have affiliate partnerships with Amazon, the NBA Store, Fanatics, MLB Shop, and others. Links are in the description below. Get your Black Friday gear through Amazon. Great discounts, as you know, and everybody shops at Amazon, so it should be a no-brainer. Get your favorite gear, fan gear. Check out the new NBA City Edition gear. That stuff looks great, especially for Phoenix Suns fans. That the tie-in with the turquoise blue, I guess you could say, within the jerseys and so forth. That looks awesome. I'm not a Suns fan, so I won't be getting mine, but if you are, get yours. But again, check out the links in the description below, and we appreciate all the support right there. Derryl, the WAC got another road win last night, though. UTRGV went into Lake Charles. The UTRGV women, I should say, went into Lake Charles and beat McNeese State. And I was looking at it and watching it. They basically led from start to finish. I think there was one lead change in the second quarter. But Lane Lord's team looked really pretty sharp last night. And I'm not saying that McNeese State is like a giant, but anytime you get a road win against a Division I opponent, that's big stuff.
It is, and when we did the preseason previews, because of what UTRGV had lost this offseason, we didn't have very high expectations of the Vaqueros. I think we put them somewhere in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 area in our preseason rankings. But yeah, for basically the same Vaquero squad minus Taylor Muff and Sarah Bershears to go into Lake Charles and get a nice road win. Yeah, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
want to go back and watch the film on that just to see what they look like. But yeah, that's not bad at all. I think that's a statement for the Vaqueros that they are going to find a way to be at least competitive this year.
yeah, I mean, we can't downplay it. Road wins are huge, okay, especially in seating with the seating system that's in place right now, where you get more, I guess, units or credit, whatever credit for winning on the road than you technically do winning at home. And so, anytime you get a road win, I mean, Sam Houston men, Seattle U men, now UTRGV women on the road. Those are big wins. I'm not going to lie. They won 68-60. Melee Kailahi, I believe is how you say her name. She had 21 points. Tiffany McGarity had 10 points. But like you said, we downplayed the Vaqueros. And I'm not saying McNeese State is, like we said, a giant. They're in the Southland Conference. So either way, though, a road win is a road win, and that's a good win.
Yeah, you're not going to – absolutely. I mean, against it – look, we know the Southland is basically the bottom half of Division I women's basketball when it comes to the conference rankings. But still, you go on the road and you get a nice under 10-point win where you likely had to execute some stuff in the fourth quarter to get that win. That's a really good sign for Lane Lord and company. I think that game might have been an ESPN Plus game. So if it is, I want to go back and watch the film on that one.
Yep, it was on ESPN Plus. I had it on my HDMI multi-viewer device last night, where I had my 4 screens going with college basketball. Like I said, check out the link in the description below, because you get one of those multi-unit things where you can put in 4 streaming devices and it'll be up on one screen. It's a great device. I love it. I have it. I showed a picture of it on Twitter. But anyways, that's another story. Another little bit of a shocker came last night in Houston. The defending WAC champions, SFA Lady Jacks, went to Rice, and it was a relatively close game. There were a couple times in the third quarter where the Owls got up by 10, but SFA kept fighting back. Eventually, it was a 2-point game heading into the fourth quarter. And I'm not going to lie, Derryl, I think SFA just kind of ran out of gas there early on. I shouldn't say early on. Like, the start to the fourth quarter was great. It just, one of the Kirsten Harden had back-to-back buckets to tie the ball game at 62. And then it just kind of got away from the Lady Jacks. There was a 15, I believe I mentioned it, 15-2 run from that point on for the next 4 or 5 minutes, and it just kind of, it was the dagger. Like but I feel like because the Lady Jacks were playing from behind most of the game, they may have run out of gas. Unfortunately, it was behind the Conference USA paywall, so couldn't watch the live stream. But watching the live stats, it just, that's what I think about that one. I know you were paying attention to it too.
Rice isn't bad. Let's remember that Rice program ended the CBU undefeated streak in 2020-21, although Anayoleta did not play in that game. But Rice is not bad. Tina Langley has turned them into a respectable program before she left for Washington. So I don't consider that a bad loss at all. I'm more concerned by the fact that a 7-win UTSA team hung around with the Lady Jacks for all of 40 minutes on Monday night. And Jonathan Shushke, who from SFA, basically said that's a much better UTSA team. And he may be right, but we won't know the value of that game until early on. I mean, at this point, it's like in NASCAR where you use last year's point standings to determine which cars get into the back end of the field. We just won't know how good of a game that was until later on, if truly UTSA has made some gains.
Yeah, it's early on, so you can't read into it too much. I think You know, Jonathan has seen these games in person, so I can't question his judgment. I'm not going to. He's a vet that's been around a long time. I think my concern is, you know, we know what we're going to get with Ayanna Johnson. We know what we're going to get with Avery Brittingham. You know, against Rice, you know, you had 4 Lady Jackson double figures, you know, which is good. I mean, that's fine. My concern is, you know, the defensive end, is Rice that good offensively, or was it just a struggle? You know, it's like against UTSA, Ayanna Johnson had 11 points. She had, you know, 20 plus against Rice. Avery Brittingham only had 5 against UTSA, but then she's in double digits against Rice. We got to find the consistency. That's the thing with SFA, the Lady Jacks, is the consistency from everybody not named Ayanna Johnson. You know, Kyla Deck had 14 points against UTSA, and then against Rice, I believe she only had 5. So, you know, Kirsten Harden's been consistent off the bench. Ayanna Johnson's been consistent. Jordan Harrison, she had 6 points against UTSA, but against Rice, she had 15. So it's consistency for me. And I know Mark Kellogg sees it, and he's going to be fine. They're going to be fine. That sustained success that they've had doesn't, you know, just happen. It's because they built a culture of understanding and what they want to accomplish. And, you know, like you said, this Rice team is better than, you know, a lot of the teams that SFA is going to face this year. So it's not a bad loss. It was just, I think you got to find more consistency from other players, you know, not named Ayanna Johnson or even Kirsten Harden, because those two have been the consistent players in the first 2 games for the Lady Jacks.
Yeah, I agree from what I've seen on the stats. And obviously the ESPN Plus stream wasn't working in the 4th quarter of that UTSA game, so we couldn't watch the end of it at CBU on Monday. But yeah, it's going to be consistency. It's going to be figuring out what lineups work and what lineups don't without Zion Nugent there to stabilize things. And that's the question a lot of us have, is what they'll look like. So far, okay, 1-1, not bad. You get through the first week with a win and a loss. The loss at Rice, I have a feeling is going to look a lot better come February and March.
Yeah, I agree.
The Owls should be contenders in Conference USA. So I don't think that looks as bad as we think it does. It's just our defending champion took a loss. That's the way we have to look at it, at least until February and March. Mark Kellogg did not schedule easy for a reason, because he knows what the month of March is going to be like and what the WAC will be like this year.
Yeah, I was curious about that too. I just looked at it, and I can't remember if Texas A&M Texarkana is a non-D1. I think they are. So they got 2 non-D1s, but they're not till December. So, I mean, it's a brutal first month and month and a half or so. I mean, UTSA, Rice, they have Texas Southern on Sunday in Nacogdoches. Then they go to Denton, Texas to take on North Texas. Then they have their Thanksgiving multi-team event in Puerto Rico, which will be fun, but Morgan State, and then they get Boston College, a Power 6 school. And then after they get back from their trip to Puerto Rico, little less than a week later, they have to they host Gonzaga in NAC before they, you know, host Texas A&M Texarkana, and then they got Arizona State. So, like you said, this is not a light non-conference schedule where I'm sorry, and everybody knows this, at least that has read my work. I'm not a fan of non-Division I games. I understand they have to happen because teams in the WAC can't get opponents or whatever. But Mark Kellogg didn't want to start his season off with some cupcakes. You know, they've scheduled well, and they're willing to go on the road to do it. And, you know, you got to give them credit. I think this SFA squad, who, you know, if everybody was paying attention when we did the SFA previews, Zion Nugent is out for the season. She's the WAC tournament MVP and one of their leading scorers coming back from last year. And most likely their point guard whose hands the ball was going to be in most of the time. So that hurts in and of itself. And I know that they're all, we get the coach's response. Well, we'll be fine. We'll be okay. We got, some depth. We got some, I get it. That's the true answer that, you have to go with to keep your confidence in your squad. But it's going to hurt. And it's going to hurt early because they're still trying to figure out how to play without her. But I think, like you said, come March, February, they're going to be battle tested and they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can say that for pretty much any squad who takes an early loss at this time of the year or even has a scare. Look at the CBU women on Monday. That was a 10-8 squad in UCSD in the Big West that challenged the third-place team out of the WAC on Monday. And Heidi Vanderveer does a heck of a job at UCSD. I'll tell you what, look out Big West because UCSD will be a player once they finish their D1 transition. They did a lot of things really well and very easily could have left Riverside with a win on opening night. But it took a heck of 31 points from Trinity San Antonio to bail them out and then 15 from Sela Finau.
Yeah, keep an eye on that Trinity San Antonio. She's going to be a baller this year for the Lancers. We'll probably feature her on a few of these podcast episodes too because she's going to be very, very good for the Lancers. That experience playing with Puerto Rico in the FIBA World Cup this summer, very, very valuable per Jared Olson, her head coach. So we'll be talking about her for sure as we go along, Derryl.
Kyle, did you get to see the Utah Valley exhibition against Park? That was a closer game than I think most of us thought it would be.
No, I was on my way to Logan, so I didn't get to see that. It actually wasn't an exhibition; it was their season opener.
Oh, yeah, that was their opener. Yeah.
It's a whole outside of Kayla Anderson and Shea Fano. It really is a whole new Utah Valley women's basketball team. We're going to see what happens today when they play in Salt Lake City at the University of Utah. It's an afternoon tip. I'm not going to be there, unfortunately, but we'll see how they handle things. They don't have a lot of size. They're young. I believe Kayla Anderson is the only senior on the squad. So they're very, very young, and we'll see what Dan Nielsen can, Jones up for them. Again, that's a 1:30 tip-off. It's on the Pac-12 network that you can watch. A couple other things from Thursday night around the WAC. Utah Tech women got a 101-75 win over Benedictine Mesa. They head north on Tuesday to face Utah State in an in-state game. Seattle U women's basketball team, they hung around for about 2.5 quarters. Fortunately, I tweeted out when it was like 50-40, and then it ended up being 89-53 in a final. Beavers just too much size and experience for the Redhawks. But, the fact that it was an 8-point game midway through the third quarter, I think it surprised me. I'm not going to lie. Susie Barkham's, team is young. They're not big per se. But, they'll be okay down the road. That's a tough place to start your season too. So,
absolutely. And she gets a ton of credit for starting that way with me. They could have, in the past couple of years, they've loaded with the non-D1s at the beginning, try to get a couple of wins. But, hey, go on the road, play a P5, and hang around with them for 2.5 quarters. Not bad at all. Same thing for New Mexico State on Monday.
And I believe that they have to go to Oregon. Yeah, they play Oregon tomorrow, Saturday, at Oregon. So to start off with Oregon State and Oregon on the road, you're going to come home probably 0-2, but you're going to be battle tested. Let's just put it that way.
And let's give some credit to the Utah Tech women. They scared Washington on Monday night too. You look at the final score, it was a 13-point game, but I think it was a 1-point game after 3 quarters or something like that.
Yep.
So we're hanging around, even on the women's side, we're hanging around with these P5s. We just got to figure out ways to turn some of these into wins.
Yep.
Because
it'll come. We got SFA hosts Arizona State, GCU hosts Arizona State. UTA has some opportunities. I believe they host Arizona in one of their P6 games. So there's opportunities there. And, the start of this season has been rather positive with regard to how teams have battled with Power 6 schools. And obviously we've already gotten one win over a Power 6 school. So WAC's got to keep getting better, and they're going to, I feel like. So, on Thursday night, there were 3 men's teams that played as well, along with SFA. All 3 played a non-D1 team. I'm going to tell you the margin of victories for Sam Houston, Tarleton, and SUU. Sam Houston won by 87. Tarleton won by 46. And SUU won by 62. So there's not much to say in regards about those games. They're fun. Opportunity for guys to get extra playing time. I know the women's side, I believe it was on Wednesday, they had a few non-D1 games where they were blowouts. Obviously, Julie Goodenough got her 200th win. While as the head coach at Abilene Christian, congrats on that. And she's going to hit 500 wins this year. She's 12 away. So very interested to see how that works out. But I'm not a fan of the non-D1 games. I'm not going to lie. I've made that very clear. I understand that you want to get home games, so I'm not questioning coaches in that regard. Unfortunately, when I see that there's 14 teams on the men's side on one night, and then there's 32 teams on the men's side on another night that have non-D1 games, all I sit here and think is, why couldn't these teams schedule home and homes? Why couldn't they come to an agreement where, okay, I'll play you at your place one year and maybe you at your place the next year, or I'll play you twice this year? It takes away, if you put 2 Division I games, they're going to count towards your net or your Ken Palm or whatever and be more beneficial to you than playing a non-D1 game. I feel like the only benefit, for me at least, personally watching college basketball, for a non-D1 game is you get guys minutes that probably aren't going to get those minutes in a game against a Division I opponent. I'm sorry. I'm not a fan of non-Division I games, and when I see that, it's frustrating because it's like these Division I opponents should be playing Division I opponents. Unfortunately, that's the analytics of college basketball right now.
Agreed. And it's the same thing on the women's side. I mean, I hate to harp on it, but GCU starting with a non-D1 and then an exhibition non-D1. And there's got to be ways for, regional opponents to come together and, say, hey, look, I want to play you. I don't know whether it's coaches being scared to travel and take a loss, or coaches scared to bring in a D1 opponent at home and take a loss. But that's got to change. If we want to be considered on the level of the Colonial or, some of those upper mid-major basketball conferences, we got to get rid of some of these non-D1 games. And I know CBU has used the limit the last 2 years on the men's side, but they dropped down to 1 non-D1 game this year. And I know the argument's going to be made, well, they can pay people to come in. But if, Rick Croy and company can drop down to 1 non-D1 game, the rest of the WAC should be able to drop down to 1 or 0.
Here's the thing, though. If you schedule a home and home, you don't have to. They're not considered bye games. You don't have to pay any money. From what I shouldn't say you don't have to pay money. I don't know how much money I would bet that if you schedule a home and home, and I'll have to verify this with coaches around the league, that if you schedule a home and home, the money that will change hands is probably significantly lower than simply having a bye game. Plus, you get Division I game, again, 2 games, I should say, against a quality opponent. Why wouldn't you want that? I'm trying to stay less dramatic because I don't know what goes all into it. I don't get paid the big bucks like these coaches do to put together their schedules. It's just from the outside looking in, it seems like something has to change within college basketball to where teams aren't. Well, Derryl left. He bounced out. But I just have this major issue with non-D1 games because they shouldn't be an issue. But like I said, I don't look at the analytics. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. This is just me spouting off my opinion. It may be incorrect. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Off my soapbox here. Speaking of non-Division I games, Derryl's I'm not sure if he's coming back in, so we'll see when he does. Speaking of now, we won. There are 3 games on tap for the WAC on Friday night, all 3 against Division I opponents. I've already mentioned Utah Valley at Utah, 1:30 p.m. tip-off. That's a women's game on the Pac-12 network. We'll see what Dan Nielsen and his young crew can do up on the hill at the Huntsman Center. It's been almost exactly 1 year to the date that we had a double overtime thriller at Reed Arena in College Station when Abilene Christian went into Reed Arena and nearly knocked off the Aggies. It was an 81-80 loss in double overtime. Great ball game, fun to watch, up and down, good stuff. Hopefully it's the same thing, and this time the Wildcats can come away with a win. But we'll see with regard to that. The other one is NJIT at California Baptist. Lancers looking to get back on track. They had that really, I don't want to say shocking. Yeah, it was shocking. The shocking home loss against Long Beach State. Not shocking necessarily that they lost, because Long Beach State's a good basketball team. They're the reigning Big West regular season champs. It was how they lost. And it just became a double-digit deficit they couldn't overcome in the second half. And we'll have to see some consistency. Joe Quintana is supposed to be back tonight for the Lancers. So expecting the Lancers to get back on track tonight. Shouldn't be hard. And JIT has traveled across the country and not really known for their basketball success. So don't take them lightly, but California Baptist should be able to win the ball game. Anyways, doesn't look like Derryl's coming back on. Remember, check out the links in the description below. Get your Amazon Black Friday gifts, whatever, white elephants, just whatever you order from Amazon. In the link below in the description, NBA gear. If you're a Houston Astros fan, there may be something to follow on this. Get your Houston Astros World Series champion gear from Fanatics or the MLB shop. Also, check out the WAC Hoops Nation apparel shop. The link is in below. Get your WAC Hoops gear. Derryl has just come back on, so we're going to close this out real quick. I'm just telling the fans to check out the links, check out the apparel. Obviously, you can see this hat is what I bought, what I got from the shop. Good stuff with the logos and so forth. There's other logos, especially straight out of WAC stuff. So go to the shop. Get your stuff. Support WAC Hoops Digest. Derryl, you got any last things before we close out here?
No. Just thank you to all the veterans out there.
And he froze up again. We got to figure out that Wi-Fi, Derryl. We got to figure out that Wi-Fi. Anyways, thank you again, all the veterans. We're grateful for all you do. Is Derryl back in now? He can say thank you on his end.
Yeah, thank you, everyone who has served and will serve, for your service and your sacrifice and your willingness to put your life on the line for our country and for us to enjoy the freedoms we do and to talk college basketball for a living.
Absolutely. We appreciate all the support, all the interactions, all the debates, even when we agree to disagree and don't see eye to eye on things. Anyways, everybody, 2022-23 season is off to a great start. Let's keep it going. We'll be here all the time. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe to this podcast. You can do that on Amazon. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. You can do that on Spotify. Make sure you follow us. Or you can just go to podbean.com and check out the Straight Outta Whack podcast, become a follower there. Anyways, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WAC Hoops Digest. Have a great Friday, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Straight Outta Whack podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta Whack podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.